Hey, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, then welcome. My name is Maddie, and today I will be discussing the latest episode of Fruits Basket. This is going to be another case where we get to the little stuff first, and then I'll talk about the major thing about this episode at the very end. So let's just get into all the little stuff first, but stuff that is still important. That being the discussion that Kazuma and Tohru have, where she goes to Kazuma in secret to talk about breaking the curse. I think what this entire scene really showed is that Kazuma and Tohru are the outside forces outside of the Zodiac who are driven to break the curse. Now that could be debatable because 𝑟𝑒 is also someone who is in the Zodiac who is trying to break it, and some other characters within the Zodiac itself who of course want to break it. None of the Zodiac want to be binded to Akito forever, but they have so many setbacks to reaching their goal of getting released from the curse, that being that they can't go against Akito, so that really draws them back and puts them back in their place to where they can hardly move forward with actively trying to break the curse because Akito is gatekeeping them from doing that. But with Kazuma and Tohru, they're both outside of the curse, so they have more resources to actually break it if they wanted to, and this scene really established that. And these two are basically the Zodiac's only hope for breaking the curse because of their drive to want to release them from it, without hardly anything holding them back from doing so. But yet when Tohru goes to see him and asks him, do you know a way to break it, Kazuma doesn't know. So we're still at a standstill. And like I've expressed before, it is actually a good thing that Kazuma did not have the answers right away, otherwise we would have no more story to go beyond that. But it does leave you with a sense of hopelessness because no one exactly knows how to break it. Or at least the audience, the ones who are watching the anime only, don't know yet the way to break it. So that does leave the audience as well as Tohru with a sense of hopelessness because we don't have the answers right now. But as we're seeing and as we saw in the last episode, Tohru is so determined to break it, and she's always been a very determined person. I mean, she decided to live in a tent in the woods by herself and get through it, so determination is in her personality trait. But like I have mentioned before, it also goes against her personality to meddle in anything. So she is still really going outside of her comfort zone in wanting to break the curse, but at the same time it's so like her to want to help out her friends and free them from this curse that is only bringing them down to where they can't have any freedom. So that's also really like her, and I'm just so pumped to see her determination right now to want to break it in the curse. I think it was shown so well in this episode, and she's just gonna get even more determined from here, and it's gonna be something to see. And one thing Kazuma does says is to just keep smiling, keep being yourself, because that helps them so much, which is so true. The fact that Tohru hasn't even actively been trying to break the curse up until last episode, and yet she still helped the Soma so much just from being herself does speak a lot. But unfortunately, her just being herself, her just being her optimistic self around them is still not going to be enough to actually break the curse. Now she does have to try to achieve that. Her just being herself isn't going to establish that, but what it will do is to help give the family some happiness because she makes them happy. This whole part was also Kazuma's time to shine as a father. Him just being like, I'm not going to let them lock up Kyo without a fight. This is why he's best dad. He's just so freaking great. Outside of Tohru, he is the only one who is willing to fight for Kyo to stay outside, which rightfully so because he fell in love with the kid. Of course, he does not want to see him locked up forever. So along with Tohru, I think Kazuma is also Kyo's only hope for staying outside. And I truly believe with the determination that Tohru and Kazuma have that they would not allow that to happen. This point isn't super important. Well, it's kind of important to a sense in Kyo's growth, but it's just really funny. So Tohru talks about how Kyo has been growing, which we've been seeing, or at least I've been seeing, and I've been like pointing it out, that Kyo has been physically growing. I did a whole video talking about that, to where he's gotten taller, his limbs are getting longer, and his hands are getting bigger, as Tohru said. So I think it's cool how she is noticing that. But one thing I've been seeing a lot of people talk about is how she distinctly mentions that his hands have gotten bigger, and like that seems very suggestive. But I mean, he holds her hand a lot. That's probably how she knows they have gotten bigger, is because she is feeling his hand with hers and sees that like has gotten larger because it's disappearing inside his grip. So that's probably how she noticed that they're getting bigger, but like it's kind of becoming a joke that she's figured it out through other things, which we know isn't true, but it's really funny. The memes that have been made from just her describing how big his hands have gotten have been really amusing, but I'm sure she figured it out through other ways. So we also get a little bit of Rin in this episode. She bumps into Tohru and tells her, no, stop hanging around the somas if you know what's good for you, which can come off as aggressive and mean, but could also mean something else, which I'll let everyone else draw their conclusions on that. I don't want to give too much away. But one thing she also says when she goes into Kazuma's house and asks what was she doing here, and he says to ask the same question you're probably here to ask me as well. That right there was a huge clue about what her goal is. That pretty much tells us what her end goal is, just with that one line that Kazuma gives. And one thing that I have been noticing, and which I didn't notice much in the manga, is that Rin really does not show up on screen ever for very long. She shows up, gives these little one-liners that give like tiny clues as to what she's all about, and then she leaves. But one thing I appreciate is that we're still getting to know her character and her goals just through those little interactions that she has with the other characters and small dialogue that she has. It makes it so that later on when we do get her full story, we're going to feel much more for her because we've been getting these little hints along the way. I always love when characters are done like that, where you just see them every once in a while, and then when you get to their story, you feel for them so much because they've been around so much and you've gotten to know them very gradually, that it just hits you right in the feels when you know their full backstory. And that is the case with Rin. And though I'm sad she only has small screen time, she's my favorite girl, my best girl, so I hate that she has so little screen time, but she will have more. Likely later on, way later on in this season, she'll get a lot more screen time, and I'm very much looking forward to that. We're just seeing these little bits of her along the way. Alright, let's get into the big part of this episode, which is Kyo and Kagura, their interaction, and them pretty much confessing how they really feel about each other. So this was a huge episode for Kagura. I really appreciate this chapter in the manga and this episode for fully developing her character, since she was a character who was very service level before. So this part in the storyline was very important for her. What we learn in this episode is that Kagura had been using Kyo as a scapegoat, as the rest of the Zodiac we pretty much know already does. But the difference with Kagura is that she had tried to atone for using him as a scapegoat to make herself feel better by forcing her love on him. And along with that, hoping that he'd love her back, so that if he did, it would completely demolish the fact that she used him to make herself feel better. In this one, I think we really do get a sense of how Kyo is viewed by the rest of the Zodiac because of the theme of him being a scapegoat. He is the cat, the one who, along with being cursed as the rest of the Zodiac is, also transforms into a monster, and his destiny is to be confined forever. The rest of the Zodiacs, though they are cursed, they won't be confined forever. They don't turn into a monster when they transform. So they still have it better off. And as a child, Kagura did come to understand this, and she looked down on him because of that. And it also made her feel way better because she knew she did not have it as bad as the cat did, and all the zodiacs view him that way. And it's just another thing that does come with Kyo's curse. He's always going to be looked down upon, and he's always going to be an outsider because of that. But one thing the zodiacs beside Kagura don't do is they don't force themselves to love him in order to hide the fact that they look down on him. That's something that Kagura does, and it is a huge issue and a huge flaw with her character. Surely, I do think it would have been more of a smarter idea to not force herself to love him if she really doesn't, if she truly does feel bad for him and looks down on him because of his curse. She should have just been honest outright. And you got to remember, as a child, she's not going to think that way. She is going to try to force herself to love him anyway, because as a child you don't get that. But I think as she had grown into a teenager, she should have told him how she really feels and not put up this persona that she is in love with him when she really isn't, or isn't to some extent, which I will get to later. I want to add though, just to give her some credit, that she didn't realize her true feelings for him until the true form arc, after she saw Tohru go after him. So I don't want this to look like I'm saying right when she turned a teenager and was at the age where she could potentially understand that her feelings were wrong, she should have told him, because she didn't realize it until that point. Though it has been a year since the true form arc, so she still waited a long time to actually confess to him, but at least it's still happening now. That's just a little detail that I forgot to address, so I want to give her credit for that. And I am, of course, not saying that I have a huge problem with this, because characters need to be flawed, and this is Kagura's biggest character flaw that makes her relatable and realistic. So I do understand and appreciate that she is flawed, and she has a flaw that is so realistic, and along with that is not often explored in anime or in any medium of storytelling in general, where a character has built up this false love on someone in order to atone for the fact that they pity them. That's something that's not really explored a lot, which makes the situation with Kagura really unique. So I do appreciate that, even though it's a huge character flaw. And during this part, Kyo also admits to her that he will never love her. And I do appreciate how he says that, because by him saying that, Kagura is able to move on. She can just let go of this fake love she had tried to force on him and just move on. And along with that, Kyo is also able to move on. I think this conversation was just really long past due, but at least it is happening now, and they are both able to just go their separate ways and get some closure out of their relationship. And I do want to take a few moments to just talk about Kyo's evident character growth in this episode in particular, because it gives me chills. It is so amazing. When does Kyo not give me chills though? He's just the best. What led him to finally wanting to confess how he really feels to Kagura was after he recalled what Kazuma had said to him, to just treasure the time he has left outside. And what he got from that, I think, is to live each moment outside that you have left to the fullest. Along with that meaning, don't have any regrets. Say what you mean. You only have a little time left, so you gotta spend it in the best way possible. And I think something he didn't feel like he had to do before that inevitable time comes is to tell Kagura how he feels, so that she can get some closure from that, as well as so he could get some closure from that. And so that's why he decided to tell her now. And while as Kagura was telling him the real reason why she felt the need to hang out with him and why she loved him, he could have easily reacted badly to that, and maybe he would have a year ago, before he had become the best version of himself. But instead, he just reacted so well, First of all, he just let her talk. He just listened to her, let her get all of that out there before he actually responded, which was just very considerate. And he also told her that no matter the reason why she played with him when they were younger, he still appreciates it because it made him happy. Because during his childhood, as we know, it was not a great childhood. He was very sheltered. He wasn't even allowed to watch TV, as we come to find out in this one, because his mom said there was too many bad stuff on it. He wasn't allowed to have any friends. He was just very much alone. And Kagura was... Baby, you're distracting me. And Kagura was someone who came along and took him away from those bad parts of his childhood for a few hours or for however long they hung out. That was his happy place and all the chaos that he had grown up in. So that's why no matter the reason, it just didn't matter. He was still happy while she was hanging out with him. And I am glad that Kyo just had Kagura in his life as a baby. Even though Kagura is a character who I have expressed my distaste for, I can appreciate how much she was there for Kyo, no matter her reasons, because it did make him so happy. It made him feel so much less alone, and that poor kid deserved that. He deserved to have a friend, even if they had ill intentions at first. That was something he really needed, and it helped him throughout his childhood, and it helped him to not lose hope that he can't be loved and appreciated someday. And he can clearly see that, so that's why he just appreciates that, as well as I appreciate that, because I wouldn't want baby Kyo to be alone ever. So, man, Kagura, you have done wrong so many times, but I can admit that that does make me happy that you did that for my baby. And although at first Kagura's love was forced, she does come to realize, after all is said between them, that she does genuinely love him, which totally makes sense because they had been hanging around each other for years. And of course, if you're going to spend that much time with someone, you're going to develop feelings for them, whether that be negative or positive. And Kagura just fell in love with him genuinely just by getting to know him. So I can give her that. Her love ended up not being totally fake. It developed into genuine love over time. What I also love is that after she confesses to Kyo that she truly does love him, he just says thank you, which is such a great response because although we know Kyo does not feel the same way about her at all, he can still appreciate the fact that someone does love him because it's so rare for him to find someone who feels that way about him. So he's still going to be so grateful that she has this love for him, even though he just can't reciprocate it back. That moment was so freaking precious, how he just held her until she stopped crying and just repeated to her, thank you. That was a really precious moment that I absolutely loved. I freaking love how the theme song was playing throughout that scene. It just made it so perfect. I rewatched that scene several times and I have actually cried during it. I didn't cry during it during my reaction, but upon rewatch, I'm just like, this is so freaking sweet. My boy is being so sweet, and I appreciate how Kagura is letting her true feelings out there, no matter the fact that he doesn't feel the same way. It was just a very sweet scene. I can't help it, even though I don't like Kagura. It was just adorable. One thing that a few people did notice, as well as myself, is that she calls him Kyo-chan during that scene. And what I think that means is that she was trying to call back to the younger Kyo, because she had called him Kyo-chan when they were kids. She didn't do it anymore as they grew older, but as kids, she had called him Kyo-chan. I found this Tumblr post that explains it way better than I could put into words, so I thought I'd read it. It's by Kyoru's. I'll link it down in the description just as a source, but it explains it really well. So they said, this episode showed us Kagura dealing with her guilt and ugly feelings of pity and rejection that she felt towards Kyo after she removed his beads. After this event, she said that she felt dirty and tried to make up for it by basically believing that if she loved him enough, it would make up for that dirty thing she did when they were kids. Ever since then, Kyo had never been just hers anymore. The foundation of her love for Kyo was based on guilt, so even though it developed into true feelings on her end, Kyo could never share those same feelings because of the faulty foundation. At this point, Kagura knows that Kyo will never love her like she loves him. Yet when she confesses to him, she is confessing to the Kyo-chan that she befriended all those years ago. A Kyo that had not been hurt by her, but rather helped and supported her. This act is Kagura saying goodbye to the boy that was only hers to have. Not the Kyo-kun that the world knows, but the Kyo-chan that's all her own. I just thought that put it in such a good way because the rest of the world knows Kyo-kun, but only Kagura knows Kyo-chan. And the theme of this episode was how she was trying to hang on to the Kyo that was hers until the next day comes, just for that day. So that's why she was calling to the Kyo-chan from their childhood and assuring that little boy that she loved him. I just love that, the little details about this story like that and how you can interpret that and the symbolism. My God, it's just so brilliant. The last thing I want to talk about is, although this episode did give Kagura a lot of redemption, it's still important to not forget about the crappy things that she has done. Them being that she uses violence on Kyo to show her love for him, and she also manipulated him so much. Let's start with the violence. So there's been a lot of discourse on whether Kagura's violence should even be something that we should get worked up about. Because in anime, the girl beating up the guy because she loves him is a trope, and I can understand that that is a trope. That was a big trope in 90s as well as kind of early 2000s anime. And of course, anime is supposed to be exaggerated. So Kagura can beat the living crap out of Kyo multiple times on screen, but in reality, she'd maybe give him a little punch or a little slap. That's just how anime is. It is exaggerated. However, violence is still happening here, no matter if it's exaggerated. In real life, it would still be violence, even though it would not be as severe as what's shown on anime. It's still violence, and that's why it still bothers me, because hitting and punching someone for any reason is not okay, even if you're using it to show that you love them, which really does not make any sense to me, but it's anime. I just really don't think it is okay. And yes, I have laughed at Kagura punching Kyo before because anime does play it up and the characters make funny expressions throughout it. It's hard not to laugh at it, but when it is all over and I reflect back on that, I'm like, ooh, that really, though, is not alright. And one thing that does bother me is that the series does have domestic violence in it where it traumatizes the characters. Like, take a character like Akito. He is super violent. He has thrown things at people, has slapped them, done so many other things that I can't even talk about because they're spoilers, but they're still violence. And yet you have Kagura who beats up Kyo and it's supposed to be played for laughs. It just really bothers me, and I think it's a big fault of the series. That being said, it just shows that it's a product of its time, because the girl hitting the guy because she loves him trope was popular during the time when the manga was first released, but times are obviously different and that doesn't fly as well today. So I can't fault Fruits Basket for having that trope that was super popular back then. When it's super offensive now, it's not its fault. It's just a product of its time. But I still can't help but think about the contradiction of violence used in this show, where one is supposed to be comedic and another is supposed to be taken seriously. Also, I'm going to add this in because I'm pretty certain someone is going to mention why I don't approve of Kagura hitting Kyo when Yuki and Kyo also fight, and that is considered violence. Which, if that were to happen, good question, because yes, it is also another form of violence. I think, though, that the Yuki and Kyo situation and them having these fights all the time did serve a purpose. It was orchestrated by Akito because he had told Kyo that if he were to beat Yuki, he would be accepted into the Zodiac and not be confined forever. So Akito did have something to do with it. And their fights do actually serve a purpose. Within the story, there's a purpose as to why they do fight. Which, because of the bet that Akito did make Kyo, he has a part in. So he's pretty much pulling the strings there, which still make their fights low-key still serious. If you know what I mean, I feel like I'm not really making sense with that. But what I'm saying is Akito does play a part in it. So those fights should still be taken seriously. That's just my feelings on Yuki and Kyo's fight. Although they are still sometimes played for laughs, but there's a tone of seriousness that is still involved with them. That is different from how Kagura's fights with Kyo's are. Those are just the intention of pure comedy, which I don't think is okay. We've also seen numerous cases where Kagura has manipulated Kyo. For example, crying in front of him at the supermarket and making him look bad in order to get what she wants from him. Stuff like that always bothered me and just showed how flawed she was. But something I am seeing is that some fans are brushing off the fact that she used to manipulate him and abuse him because her actions were super positive in this episode. But I think it's still important not to forget the bad things that she has done and to hold her accountable for those things, while we can still appreciate that she is changing and growing for the better. But we're seeing that she does feel bad about forcing a fake love on him, but still has not acknowledged the fact that she was super violent to him and manipulated him several times. So that's still a bit of a problem. But I can appreciate that she is taking baby steps to grow more and to redeem herself. Something I do want to add, because this will give further context as to why I don't like Kagura, because although I still do dislike her for her violent tendencies and her manipulation, there is something that she does later on that makes me despise her, and of course anime onlys don't know about that yet, so I feel like y'all who are only watching the anime might be a little confused as to why I put so much hate on her. It's because she does something way later on in the series that is very despicable, that grinds my gears so much. It's the worst thing she has ever done. And of course, I'm not going to say what that is because spoilers. She did something that, although had good intentions, the way she went about it was not okay. She could have went about it a completely different way that wasn't so toxic. So that's why she irritated me so much during that scene. And I'm sure manga readers know which scene I'm talking about. It's the part where the majority of readers hate Kagura, I've come to find out. So I'm not actually alone in this one. And I feel when that scene comes, she's going to be getting a lot of criticism. So that won't be for a while, but I wanted to give context as to why I hate her, because the reason I really hate her has not come yet. So there's that. And I think that's all I wanted to say about this one. In conclusion, my feelings on Kagura are mixed. Like I said, I appreciate some of the steps she took to become a better person in this episode, but I do still have to hold her accountable about the crappy things she's done in the past. I can't help the fact that I really don't like her. She is my least favorite character of the series, but I can somewhat understand why other people do like her, and I think we all have a right to like or dislike a character. So please, if you love Kagura, don't come for me. I just have my opinions, okay? I can respect the fact that you like her while I don't like her. So please understand that. I might do another discussion for the next episode. I'm thinking about it. This has become, I guess, a regular series. Even though I didn't do this for season 1 at all, but season 1 did not have a lot of discussion-worthy episodes in it. It was basically all set up. But now we're getting into episodes that have a lot of plot within the episode to discuss. So this could possibly be a regular thing for every episode from now on. It just depends if I have enough time to review each episode, but I do really love doing these videos and just talking about the episode and analyzing what went on in them. So it could possibly just be a regular thing from now on. We shall see. But I am thinking about doing the next one because the Hatori and Mayu situation has a lot to talk about within it. It has a really good theme to discuss in regards to their relationship. So I have a strong feeling I will talk about it in a discussion video like this one. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Let me know if you like or dislike Kagura, because I think she's a very polarizing character, so I'd like to know what y'all think. And I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more anime-related videos and anime reactions. And also, do be sure to click that bell icon beside the subscribe button if you want to be notified for whenever I post a new video. And I'll be back really soon. Bye!